All right, Nick, let's talk about the Miami Hurricanes off to a fast start. This team looks really good, sitting at 4-0, number 3 team in the country right now. But going into a game against a feisty Florida State team, I know they lost last week, but coming off of a loss could be even tougher. It's a really great offense. Does the defense have what it takes to slow it down? I think they do, and I think quietly Miami has one of the better defenses in the country right now, and there's some secret sauce about all of the moves they made that have led to that. I think Miami fans are going to love this one. But before we get into that, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, as I alluded to, this Miami team defense is looking really, really good. And I think there's some, key things they did this offseason, some moves they have done to really elevate this defense, make it a whole lot better. And we'll break down just how good it looks. But first, let's get into just a quick snippet from Miami's DC, talking about the guys, how they're playing, and just a little bit show you how good this defense has actually been. So, first up, this is from the Miami Herald. This is DC Heatherman coming in to talk about what he thinks about the guys have done so far this year. He says, "We want our guys to love football. We want our guys to be excited to work together to compete. One of the messages for our guys is we're going to have mistakes. We know that. Hopefully, Saturday there's less mistakes than there are on Tuesday, but the faster we play, the more physical we play. We feel like that erases a lot of them. As we continue to play together and gel, the guys continue to get more comfortable working together every week. We've got to limit some of those mistakes, communicate a little bit better. And I think that's where you start seeing some of our growth right now. And talking about growth, the results kind of have spoke for themselves for Miami through 4 weeks. They are ranked 11th in third down conversion rate for their opponents, which is 24%. That's pretty good. They're 15th nationally in both yards allowed per game at 244 and a half and points allowed per game at 11 and a half. And they're tied for 25th in turnovers forced at 6. Pro Football Focus has Miami's defense graded as the second best pass rushing team in the country and the third best run defense team nationally. So number 2, number 3 in run and pass rush, run defense. That's pretty dang good. So what could have led to all of this? How is this defense all of a sudden one of the top defenses in the country? I think the key was this offseason, some decisions that Mario Cristobal made with this coaching staff. We had some key hires this offseason for the defensive side of the football. First and foremost, Corey Heatherman was hired as the new defensive coordinator, replacing Lance Guigi. But Heatherman came in from Minnesota really just to make this a violent and fierce defense. Those are the words they used in what their image of this defense is going to be. And we've seen just that. But it wasn't just him. Zach Etheridge and Will Harris joined as defensive back coaches for corners and safeties, respectively. And Harris, Florida guy, played at the University of Florida, so going to help with recruiting as well. Des Moines Lewis, Hurricanes alum, returned as the D-line coach. Jason Taylor, always been there. We talked about how great of a recruiter and coach Jason Taylor has been. He's still there. And then Terry Jefferson was added as an assistant DB coach as well. So they just added some great pieces to this defensive staff, top down, changed out a whole lot of stuff. And this defense is thriving because of it. Let's take a look about just how overall the defense has ranked. And as we can see here, it is the top 5 defense in the country. This isn't Big Ten. This isn't ACC. This isn't SEC. We're talking about in the country. This is one of the best defenses in all of college football right now when we talk about Miami. But it's not just team play as well. They have some really superstar level players, and we can break that down here. We see in all of college football, if you look at who's got the best defenders, and this is every position, this isn't just single out one position in particular. Miami's 2 edge rushers really look great. Ruben Bay Jr., number 1 player in the country there with the 95.8 defensive grade. And then Akeem Mesidor, again, that number 9 spot for in the country, 91.4 grade for him, doing some really good stuff for the Hurricanes. So this team really looks great. And even if you break it down further, you can see in the ACC, those 2 guys obviously are at the top, but there's a third guy who's really high up there as well. So Ahmad Moten Sr., another guy from Florida, Sarasota, a great talent on this defense. So just overall, this defense looks really, really good. And I think there's a couple of key takeaways we can take from this is one, the new coaching staff hires really have elevated this defense and we've seen it become really, really special. But on top of that, there's three players on this Miami team, two of which are from the state of Florida, one of which has been from Canada. He's been on this Miami team for 4 years, and we're seeing them grow and develop into top tier talent. So, what does that say? It says to recruits, it says to guys that are transfers, hey, we knew Miami was the place. If you were a transfer quarterback and you wanted to come to Miami, that was the place to go. It can make you better. We've seen it in back-to-back years. Some great additions there at the quarterback position, but also now we're seeing defensive level talent, both guys that from the recruiting realm and the transfer portal realm as well. If you want to come to Miami, this defensive staff can develop and make you into one of the best players in the country, and it's one of the best defenses in the country as well. So I think a lot of things are trending in the right direction for Miami. This defense is looking good, and Mario Cristobal made some really smart decisions this offseason. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But before we get to you, Miami fans, in the comment section below, talking about the defense, it's been really strong all season so far. Do you, I know it's early, but coming into Florida State, do you have a defensive MVP? Is there one guy in particular you really like that you think has had a strong showing this year? Let us know who your MVP on the defense is so far this season in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on all of these things for the Hurricanes?
It's one thing to look at what Miami has done up to this point, and credit has to be given to the players. Of course, Carson Beck, a lot of the defensive players you mentioned, but it goes without saying, but I think it needs to be emphasized, the intelligent and the deliberate decision making by head coach Mario Cristobal in terms of the wholesale changes of the coaching staff and the moves he made, implementing key pieces in his staff over the course of the offseason to get them ready for this moment. It could have been very easy for Cristobal. Remember, he's an offensive guy by trade, right? He's an former offensive lineman, got his ranks coaching up through the ranks as an offensive line tight ends coach before eventually becoming an offensive coordinator and then coming over to be the head coach for the Miami Hurricanes. This is not a guy who knows defense the way, it's not like he's born and bred defense. It would have been very understandable for him, and we see this a lot in college football, to just kind of delegate defensive coaches and defensive decision making to other guys and just say, all right, I want to bring in an experienced defensive coordinator that's done this for 30 years and let him run the show. I'm an offensive guy. He could have done that. Instead, he went more aggressive. He went after and was very active, bringing in a new defensive coordinator. Highly touted, mind you, but still a little bit of a risk, right? We're talking an elevated challenge. How is it going to react? Different level of competition, and so far it's worked out good. How about the rest of the staff? Again, very aggressive. We're talking staff changes. We're talking bringing in new guys. This is something that happens with organizations that's very, very risky. People need to understand that a lot of the best teams in football are good because they have stability. Even Nick Saban, when he was changing offensive coordinators every other year or so, bringing in, a fired head coach to be their new offensive coordinator, 80% of that staff was stable, working their way through the ranks, right? Their DC would have been the graduate assistant 20 years ago, and then would have been the linebackers coach, and then the safeties coach, and then would have eventually become the defensive coordinator over the years, right? Stability. That's what the good organizations traditionally have. Ohio State has that for a very long time, right? Ryan Day worked under Urban Meyer before he replaced Urban Meyer. Stability is what a lot of programs aim to do. Succession plans in place from position coaches to coordinators to the head coach to the athletic director, right? It's one of those things that's so true when you're trying to build a program and build a consistent pipeline. Most programs, they aim for stability. Miami, winning a lot of football games. Defense obviously cost them last season, but it would have been very easy. It would have been very understandable. It would have been sort of the status quo in terms of how programs are ran to just stick with the defensive staff. Maybe make a minor tweak here or there, right? Maybe change this guy up, or maybe change the recruiting strategy a little bit, or like say we're going to go with more blitzes this year and less zone, or whatever it may be. Instead, he was behind a wholesale massive change. And that's a very risky move because obviously it's early. Things could go one way or the other. But so far, it has absolutely worked out. And this defense is 1,000 times better than what we saw in 2024. And people need to understand how risky that was, because this was a Miami team that if they kept the status quo defensively, remember, they're 10-win kind of team. They're this close to making the playoffs last year. A lot of teams will take that. Like, hey, 9-10-win team, almost in the playoffs. Hey, yeah, we didn't make it this year. That's how the cookie crumbles. We'll make it next year, though. We'll just bring and run it all back the same. Mario Cristobal didn't do that. He was aggressive hiring people. He was aggressive at every level of this defensive staff. Obviously, we know he's a good recruiter. Obviously, we know they're good talent development in that Miami program, but he introduced volatility. And here's the thing about volatility. You can get some ups and you can get some downs. And right now, the Hurricanes under Mario Cristobal, they rolled the dice and they got it done with a lot of great hires. And look, it's a risky move. People kind of sleep on that decision-making process from Cristobal. But if they would have been even worse defensively or would not have gotten better, then it would have been just the dumbest move of all time. Instead, Cristobal made a very bold, aggressive move, and it has worked out for them up to this point. And then you brought up a great point, though, in your opening arguments, talking about Florida State and their matchup this weekend. Well, I think that's the biggest challenge. I know Notre Dame's a good football team. I know Florida has a few guys, even though their offense isn't great. But I look at this Florida State team upcoming here, coming off a loss. That offense performed well. Castellanos has given really good defense. He gave Alabama fits, right? He's a mobile guy. Gus Malzahn has a unique way of approaching things, offensive coordinator for Florida State, for anyone who's unfamiliar. So this is the real test. What we've seen up to this point, I know they played some good teams and some big ranked wins, but to me, this is the real test because this Florida State team, they're all about offense. They're all about unique. They don't run a traditional offense in terms of how most teams do. So this is going to be a real challenge for the coaching staff. If they answer the bell this weekend, then I think we're going to look at the defensive coaching staff, total rehaul led by Mario Cristobal. Again, not a defensive guy by trade, but making the willful decision to change everything there. That move right there to just reshuffle the entire staff and the rewards from it, if they can beat Florida State and play well defensively, I think we'll look back and say that was the boldest move of the year and quite possibly the smartest.
Yeah, Nick, and I think the point you bring up, that's really key here because this is a Florida State team that, yes, they did lose last week, but also this offense, which is the test here that they're going to have to go against, put up 38 points. It's still an offense that's, like you said, super, super, explosive. Castellanos has been a great pickup for them. He's been their leading rusher twice this season, so the guy's really able to use his legs. So, like you said, this is going to be the real test. And, fortunately for Miami, probably the toughest game left on their schedule. The rest of the schedule, ACC opponents, no one looks super, incredible. There's going to be some tough teams, some frisky teams down there, but this is the last ranked opponent they have, and this is going to be the real test. So this could be a make or break season type of thing for Miami for winning this game. If you don't have any more ranked opponents left on the schedule, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. If you lose to Florida State, could kick you out of a playoff, contention spot. If everything all said and done, you're not able to, get the ACC better, whatever the case is going to be there. But needless to say, this is going to be a big game. Like you said, I think it's really going to show in this Florida State offense. I think is going to do two things here. We're going to see Miami is the real deal, but also is going to show that, hey, this defense is for real. I think they're going to shut down the Florida State offense. I don't think it's going to be too entirely close. Miami's a very good team. I think we're going to see this defense dominate like they have. They played a lot of great teams. Everyone talked about how great South Florida was coming into that matchup. How's explosive team, really going to give them fits. Absolutely dominate them, only let them score 12 points. So I think we're going to see a big surprise this weekend from the Miami Hurricanes when they go to Florida State. Away game as well there for them. So defense travels. I think we're seeing a lot of it. And I think it's going to really shine on the field for the Hurricanes.